We're recording.
Welcome to Two Monks, One Cave. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're part of our journey. Apparently you have very little self-restraint because we've already told you don't keep watching and
or respect.
But don't worry, we'll walk out of this all together at some point, or they'll come and get us and put us in a basket. Either way, welcome. Glad you're back for our conversations. If it's not without your mental capabilities in terms of self-esteem, go ahead and push that like and go ahead and push that subscribe button, and then you can tell people you did your self-effacing, self-immolating thing for today. So without further ado, as you know, we always have the lovely Arorah, we always have the genteel and erudite Arthur, and you have the dumbass. And welcome to our show.
Thank you, Lao, for that soothing and comforting introduction. We all feel better about ourselves now.
It's such a silky voice. I mean, he's delivering this in such a silky way. I could just imagine, with that voice, you just don't need lube.
Just let it happen.
Clicking on it. Well, today I'm going to introduce a topic that I actually am super excited to hear you guys take on it. I've been listening to Rupert Sheldrake. I don't know if you know him, but he writes a lot about science and spirituality, and he has a lot to say, some interesting things to say about it. And he was talking a lot about intuition and presentiment, and that it's a natural occurrence. They talk about it as supernatural, but it's actually, most people have it, in terms of when somebody is looking at you, maybe, behind you, or, you haven't, the phone rings and you know who it is. It's just like these natural things that occur. So I'm actually going to start with Arthur today, because I want to see how your take is on, what your take is on intuition, how you see it in your life. There was one time when I was at your house with you and your beautiful wife, Adele, and I was telling you about a client I had, and you looked at me and you said, "This is what he needs." And I thought, where did he find that? Where did he see that? Was it an intuition? Was it a guess? Or, so how do you view intuition in your life, and how do you see it, and how do you work with it, especially when you're working with people?
Well, let's actually start. I'm fascinated, this person that you referenced, obviously you find his topic and his discussions interesting. How does he define intuition? Because I have my own way, obviously, of defining. I'm curious how he would define it.
I think he defines it as something that we all have naturally. And he can define it as, a presentiment, so that you have something that you have this idea of well, today I'm going to meet someone, and then you meet someone, we have these things naturally occurring in us that is in intuition. I also think that it becomes stronger the more you meditate, maybe, or the more you get quiet. So I don't know. I'm not explaining very well what he
actually you are, and it's excellent because you actually touch upon what we talked about together in the last episode, which is basically flow. When you're in the flow, things happen in their own way. The way that I would define intuition for myself is instinct plus experience. Okay, so instinct is something we come into this world with. Experience is something we acquire in this world. And when those two things come together, it creates what you would call a sixth sense, right? Something that is a combination of everything that you are on all different levels. And it functions best, interestingly enough, as we talked about with the flow, it functions best when you don't interfere with it. So in my experience, and I can only speak of my experience here, right? In my experience, this thing right here is one of the biggest impediments to intuition. Okay, because it second guesses you, creates you second your ability to second guess yourself. Any kind of personal confusion will then interfere with the intuition, right? And the intuition is based on several things. It's based obviously on your soul, what predispositions it has one came here in to this world with, and what you acquired in this world, what the experiences you have. So a lot of my personal experiences are the battlefield of business, right? Those are my personal experiences. That is very different. While I have done many years of martial arts, that is very different from somebody who has decades of martial arts experience and is an active fighter, right? Or actively creates that. Very different from somebody who's actually been on a real battlefield. I don't have any of those instincts. I may have one to duck, I hope, but maybe not. Maybe not at all. I mean, right? My old teacher used to say that when his sergeant taught him in the Russian army, he would often say, you know, when you get to the ground, you have to be able to feel your balls in the ground. Otherwise, basically, you're exposing your ass to shrapnel, right? I don't.
What I'm hearing is that there's kind of two types of intuition. There's one that comes naturally just from your soul. You talked about the soul. And then there's one that is almost that you're trained to, like you can train yourself, like to duck at the right time. Do you want to jump in anything that that you heard, Lao, in terms of both soul and training? And then we'll continue.
Yeah. The intuition from a Taoist cosmology perspective comes from the Hun. It's knowing without knowing why you know.
And just so people understand what Hun is, Han, would you explain, you know, even what Han and Po is, just again, just for new people?
Po is your corporeal self. This is where your instincts lie, right? So if you see a deer out in a meadow and the deer freezes and then gets down or drops down, that's an instinct, but it doesn't know why it's doing it. It's not a cognizant knowing. Intuition is that which is below your cognizant, executive, voluntary function. So there's a body or a Po intuition that something doesn't seem right. But that's usually a cue off of something so subtle you can't put your finger on it. So the deer smells something, or, and more importantly, it doesn't smell something. It goes, it's the lack of it. Something's not right. Or birds are chirping, and then take that now to Hun, which is the ethereal soul. It's the highest potentiality of you to the point that's not you. And now this is the knower who knows, but you don't know why you know. One comes from life experience, the other one comes from lives experience. This is why people who follow the path of any sort tend to be considered wise people. It's not. They're exposed to more experiences, usually not sweet ones, not kind ones, usually dark nights of the soul, usually suffering, pain, trauma. But in that, there becomes a knowing. And in that knowing, for example, I cut my hand yesterday, deep. And so I'm sitting at my desk, I take out my needle and thread, and I'm just sewing it up. Now, why did I do that? And the answer is,
Okay, just hold the phone for a second, Arthur, and I need to take that in. I just happen to have my little sewing kit next to me.
Yeah, because I'd sewed the bottom of my pants the other day. So I had it.
Is there a crochet kit there? Or?
Needle and thread.
Could you not have crocheted your hand?
Crochet needles are much bigger. You want to put that in your hand? Oh, it's a little needle. But why did I do that before? How did I know to do that? The answer is because I've sewed up myself when I was stabbed before. So it's something you just know to do. Mother who has the first kid is freaked out. The mother who has her sixth kid, they could juggle chainsaws. She's just like, it's fine, don't even worry. Because there's an intuition of when they hear the cry. The new mother hears the cry, oh my God, Armageddon. Get the bleach, get the, the medicine, get every doctor on the planet here. I heard a cry. The mother who has six kids, oh, that's a bullshit cry. I don't even want, right? So there's an intuition that comes from that. That's very plain. But then there's an intuition of, no, something's not right. Now, it is extrasensory, but it is not extra natural. It is very natural. There's a, I can't remember who the author it's attributed to, but there's the saying basically goes, we do not possess thoughts, thoughts possess us.
Yeah.
Like the brain, there's no place in the brain that we can find memory. We find places like the hippocampus and all that have interest in holding certain memories, but the vast majority of them, but if the brain is a receiving device or is thought of as a receiving device, this is the whole idea of your frequency or your where you're tuned into. Because sometimes you have a thought, another person has the same thought, but you're also very connected at that moment. Well, the thought doesn't originate here, but here is not who we are. That's Poe. Poe is a receptive to the Hun or the etheric soul, and your soul is a part of a bigger, greater flow. So how do you get this intuition? Depends on if you're here. Now, what exactly what Arthur was saying, there's just times when you got to stay out of your way. You want intuition? Stay out of your way. Don't be the obstacle blocking the light, because the shadow can't teach you anything. You got to get out of the way and let the light go. That's the intuition. But 9 times out of 10 people, they get in the way because they have paralysis by analysis. They overthink.
So I want to just jump in with some of what Sheldrake talked about, some of the scientific evidence for intuition and something that you just said, Lao. And that was that different, about not thinking, not being the thinker, just thoughts come in. And when they were doing these experiments with people and showing them pictures, that before the picture came up on the screen, they were already having an emotional response to it before it even came, and nobody knew what it was going to be. And there's a sort of a theory amongst like sort of spiritual scientists that that and maybe this is a Jungian thought too, that there is around us a frequency or a kind of a vortex, and that we tune into it. And so, and I'm wondering, when you talk about Po and Hun, so the Po being the body, the animal part of ourselves, and the Hun being much more the spiritual part. If, like, for instance, hunters will say, and you're a hunter, so when they could be miles away from a deer and they're seeing that deer, but that deer can sense that they're being watched. Or policemen who are watching a criminal or something like that, and the criminal will just, even though that they don't even know that they're looking, they just sense it and they turn and look in the same direction. So it's like there's something out there that people are tuning into. Or even when you're having coffee with somebody or a dinner with somebody, and you can just tell that what you said did not hit them right. There's just something about their, So what do you guys have to say? Either one of you, just jump in. What do you have to say about this idea that there is information out there that maybe Hun tunes into, or that Poe tunes into? How do you relate that in kind of a more scientific way, in just looking at who we are in, according to nature? And I think Hun and Poe is really a great way to kind of look at this.
Well, I don't actually have a scientific way I look at it. I allow myself to be who I am, and I'll give you a couple of examples. When I work with people, it doesn't matter of the distance that we then go on. I know when they're thinking of me, and I've oftentimes, just for the hell of it, picked up the phone and just started dialing, and on the other end, people like, I was just dialing your number. How did you do this? And this happens consistently enough that you can actually attach signs to it. I can actually replicate it for the most part, but I have to have some sort of connection. You ask me how I knew about your client. Well, I didn't. You did, right? You and I had a connection. We took a walk together. We took several walks. Our energies intermeshed, right? what was available to you became available to me. And from my own personal experience, this has happened more times than I can imagine, is that when I need an answer for something and I go into a meditative state, more often than not, that answer comes, but it doesn't come in the form that I expect. The images that I get, the understandings that I get, I don't really understand them to begin with. It only after it unpacks itself and makes itself available to me in certain moments, not exactly when I want it, but it does become available to me. So I personally don't know how to attach, again, myself. The last example I have is I used to have a hour-and-a-half commute that I did for 3-4 years every day. And it was the same road every day. And I like to drive fast. And I enjoy doing that because actually that's when I'm driving the safest. That's when I pay attention the most, right? And I got to a point where I could predict with extreme accuracy where there would be a speed trap. It would almost be comical. I would always be laughing at myself about it because I just happened to sense it and it'd be miles away and I would know that it's there. Again, maybe there's a better explanation, but I just think it's just a matter of actual experience and getting yourself out of the way, allowing yourself to participate in this information that is all out there. I mean, as far as I understand, all this information is out there. It's a matter of plugging into it. Is that kind of the right way of saying it, Lao? I mean, is there a better way of saying that?
No, I don't think so. You know, a lot of these things are difficult because they're nuanced. And so you get on one side of the equation, people who are scientific, they're hyper rational. But the universe itself is not hyper rational. Right? Some people say, you know, that the universe has an order. No, it doesn't. There's no order to the universe. Because if the universe has order, then the universe will end in terms of finitude. Now, this expression of the universe is surely finite, but the actual universe itself is infinite because it'll just keep doing this shit. So how can the fundamental substrate of reality be, in fact, chaos? Well, order has a beginning, middle, and end. Then you're done. But chaos has no such rules. So beginning, middle, end, middle, beginning, middle, it doesn't matter. Those don't make any sense. So if you look at physics, particle physics, quantum theory, whether it's multi-worlds, whether it's single electron, there's many different types of theories here. And some people say to me, you know, because a lot of people in spirituality use quantum physics because it doesn't make sense. So I can just describe any fucking thing I want to it. And it's okay because it doesn't make sense to anybody. No, that's slovenly. Please stop doing that because you make us all look like assholes. When people ask, like, well, which one of these theories do we, you know, does the Taoists think is more closely? First off, Taoists don't think one is close to anything. They're all correct. They're all happening simultaneously. Well, how's that possible? Chaos. It's chaos. Is there one electron in the whole universe? Well, technically, no, there's none. But I get what your point is. So yeah, might as well say there's one, might as well say there's infinite. It doesn't matter. Both are completely right and wrong simultaneously. Paradox, yeah? Now, so consciousness. You think of consciousness as, well, I'm conscious right now. Yes, but you have no idea what you just meant or said. What you're talking about is I'm aware right now. Awareness is not consciousness. Consciousness is not necessarily awareness. The difference is there are things happening that you're conscious of, but you're not aware of. There are things that you are aware of that are beyond consciousness because you're just going off some multifaceted fantasy goddamn world. This is why you have Hun, but you also have Yi, which is the mind, the logos, the discursive. And Yi is trying, always wants to be supreme. Oh, it's about me. Oh, you know the single circle with the dot? I'm the fucking dot. Look at me. It's about me. It's like, it's not about you. It's fucking not about you. And Yi wants that supremacy. I want it reproducible. Nothing's reproducible. Man can't walk in the same river twice. Not the same river, not the same man. Well, no, but I can do this consistently. bravo fucking, but you're not doing it consistently because the you that are doing it is not consistent. But the eyeball can't look at the eyeball. So Hun, and the Kabbalists talk about this as the neshama, sort of this, like the neshama is so big that even universes fit inside of it. And this is why the mom in St. Louis and her sons in Boston having, a holiday with his aunt gets hit by a car, and the mom damn near chops her hand off cutting onions because she realized she doesn't know why she knows. She goes and picks up the phone and she finds out she's been hit by a car. The kid's neshama, her neshama are obviously overlapping. They're so big. And so she just knows, but she doesn't know why she knows. The yi doesn't know. So the yi goes, oh, this happened outside of my consciousness. No, it didn't happen completely in your consciousness. It just happened in your little ass, limited ass focus of awareness. So you have to differentiate the concept of awareness versus consciousness. We're always conscious of things. You can take people in hypnosis, take them deep, and you'll find out that they were much more conscious than they remember. So where did all that come from? Where is it stored? And the answer is, you are not the summation of this little ass peephole called your awareness. Those people are myopic. That's why if I can't instrument it, it doesn't exist. If I can't explain it within my rational understanding, it doesn't exist. And it's like your hubris is fucking spilling all over the floor. Could you clean that up? It's kind of disgusting. Intuition is that thing which is outside of your awareness, but still within your consciousness.
What you just described is what Sheldrake talks about when he has had debates with different scientists who are trying to disprove, things like intuition, that it's impossible, it can't happen, or it's not provable. And he says that whenever he is bringing evidence, that these guys just, they don't bring any other evidence and they just turn him off completely. So it's that yi that you just talked about. If it isn't within the realm of what I can see or agree with, then it doesn't exist, or there's no proof for it. And yet you both have talked about just different things that happen every day. They're everyday occurrences. It's almost, it can't, how could it be supernatural when it's ultra natural?
But the thing is, it's so natural that we don't notice it. And therefore, by the time we notice it, we think, oh, this is amazing. It's been happening like all the time. You just became aware of it. It's not that it isn't happening. And that happens more often than not. The problem is people want to prove something, but you can't prove the thing and be doing the thing simultaneously. My son's a gymnast. He says, Dad, I did terrible on that event. You can do the event or you can judge the event. You can't do both, boy. To choose one of the goddamn lanes. And you're having the experience. Now, that the idea of meditation, internal alchemy, kundalini, or any of these things is to try to get the outside of your self experience, where you leave this ordinary state of awareness to try to get an expanded version of consciousness. And people describe it as the universe experience the universe as the universe, or whatever language you want to use to it. But the truth of the matter is you're doing it every moment. Right? When people say, I had this really amazing experience, you're always having an amazing experience. But you're myopic in your focus, in your awareness. And so you kind of shit on things every day. Arthur talks about it all the time. I love it. Be in your body. Look around. Look at the colors. Do you know how many people have a near-death experience and go, the colors are so much brighter? No, it's not. You're just fucking paying attention. The colors are always that bright. The stupid Beatles, like, what is that asshole going on about? They're always like this. But you're over here going, walking around going, my macchiato's not this. And oh my God, do you know that they said this in this book and it really bothered me? How can you see a color if you're in your own fucking head making some alternate world theory?
Yeah.
It even goes worse than that. I mean, the people I see walking down the street, they have their headphones in. They're looking down into their phone as they're walking, right? What can they possibly notice outside of this 2.5 inches, right, of a screen?
Is that the name of your next podcast?
Go outside the 2.5 inches.
Okay.
That will be my next podcast book, Life Outside 2.5 inches.
Oh God.
I
Guys.
don't want to handicap people. I just feel awful. To be honest with you, people do that to numb themselves because to connect with the colors, to connect with the sounds, to connect, to expand,
With the smell.
or their smell, to connect with those things is to expand your awareness. And if you do that, you have to expand. Now you're aware of your insecurities. Now you're aware of your inadequacies, your foibles, all of your pain and anxieties. They keep the world small to keep it numb. You put it in the dark, no one can see it.
Well, that's what addiction is all about. And that's the other side of addiction. I mean, the other side of what recovery is about is connecting to all those things. That's why recovery is so hard.
When I was, for many years, for about 5 years, I practiced fasting. And I did it anywhere from a couple of days to way too many days, way more than I should have. And an interesting thing that I noticed, around day 4, life becomes amazing. Smells magnify. All these stupid thoughts disappear and your thoughts become clear. Your head clears up, right? It was actually an amazing experience going through it because the engagement in life is just phenomenal. Maybe it's because your body goes into a state of survival, ultra survival, and it has to heighten all your senses in order to help you freaking open the refrigerator and get food. Right? But it was just amazing because I also noticed that I couldn't think anymore outside of really, really fundamental small thoughts. And it was just the best state of being. So I found a lot of calmness in fasting.
And one of the things that happens whenever you remove a sense is that another sense picks up for it, right? Blind people, a better sense of smell or hearing. Interesting story that if you were a sighted person who becomes blind, when you hear things, if your hearing becomes better, your visual cortex will actually be engaged when you hear things. So it's not just your vestibulocolor and auditory cranial nerves, but also the visual nerves will also amplify. So it's kind of synesthetic, right? Where you can hear sounds and see smells and all that kind of things. Mm-hmm. And it becomes bigger, right? But again, these are all happening outside of your awareness. They're not happening outside of your consciousness. And so intuition, if you deprive a sense, this is why people meditate in pure darkness. They go into sensory deprivation chambers. The thing is people try to live in them, like as Arthur was talking about, and they try to live in them. And then the problem is if you deprive it so long, it atrophies. That's the way muscles work. That's the way nerves work. Not using it makes it more sensitive, but it also, if you not use it long enough, then it'll make it atrophy. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. This is a law of conservation.
So would you say, Lao, and I'm curious actually on your opinion on this, would you say if you second guess your intuition long enough, it atrophies?
Yes.
Interesting.
But more specifically, if you analyze, it'll atrophy, and or it'll go dormant anyways. But the reason why is because
now you're getting to quantum physics, aren't you?
Yeah, you can't. You almost have to be in a state of I don't give a shit, and your intuition will get so much better.
Yeah, that's true.
If you see me at a like for example, Memorial Day weekend, I think I'm flying up to Ohio. There's a group of people. A lot of them are AA, as far as I understand, but a bunch of other people are coming all over, and they're putting on a workshop, and they want me to teach. And they were like, "What are you going to teach?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. What are you guys struggling with? What's your issue?" And it was social awkwardness and self-reliance. Okay, that's cool. So I'm gonna go up there and talk about it. If somebody watches me during that, or if they've ever watched me, there's no me. I have no idea. Like Arthur said a ton of time, I have no idea what I just said. It's happening. And in that moment, you'll see so many people. People say this to me all the time. how did you know I was going through that? Like, what, you were talking directly to me. There's no doubt. I mean, you said songs that were associated. The only way you could have known is if it was me. How did you do that? I'm like, well, we met. I don't know.
Is it like that Shaggy song? Wasn't me?
And then what happens is as these things go along, I've over the time, I don't even think about it anymore because I don't want to know. Because the more I try to know or figure it out, the more I get in the way. Because the I that wants to know is E. Because the E wants control over it. I want that power to make myself significant. I don't want it. It happens because I don't want it. It happens because I don't care. And so the person in front of me, I care about. But the ability to do this between us two, I don't give two shits about. And to be honest with you, it would be better for me if I didn't have it because I like solitude. I like spending long periods of time not talking to a soul. Like when I go out, primitive living skills of something. So I have a backpack on, I may have a schmog on my head and all. And in that moment, there's no I. And so I might sleep on the ground in the mud. I might sleep in a tree. It just depends. In that moment, there's just go. And I know where to go and I don't know where to go at the same time. I have no plan. And yet it's all already mapped out. I just follow the path. And then when I get back, people say, how was your trip? I don't know.
Because road trips are so fun, just, like going anywhere, because I noticed that for myself, those types of trips where, all of a sudden somebody's stuck in the mud, you get out and you help push them out and you meet people. And it's so, well, I guess it's really what the wandering Taoist does, isn't it? Really?
Right. It's Wu Wei.
Wu Wei.
You don't have to make the road. The road's made. The road will unfold itself for you. Just walk.
Just don't interfere with the road.
And people do that with their thoughts and their awareness.
Honestly, Lao, honestly, I get chills because what you speak of, I've experienced. I know exactly what that's like. And oftentimes I have an incredibly hard time talking about myself. When people want to know my history or anything else, that is actually very, very difficult for me because I know it's actually not me, right? I know that the moment I speak about it, it's not me. So, look, the form has to be followed, right? This world demands a certain form from you.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons I really don't like to talk about myself. Look, we'll just go and do it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out along the way, right? Take the first step and we'll see what happens. And frankly, that's exactly how I talk to people in entrepreneurship or business. I said, don't sit there thinking about it, analyzing, just go and we'll find out what happens on the way. Bad things will happen. Absolutely. Good things will happen. Absolutely. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Well, what you guys are both talking about is the difference of playing God and just being, because like, trying to control everything is like trying to be God over everything, trying to control people, trying to control even your thoughts or how you are, or who you are, So what you're talking about is letting go of the need to play God.
The difference between playing God and being God.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good one. All right. That's a new bumper sticker.
Right?
Ain't playing, just being. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because God doesn't control anything. Why? It's already done. Yeah. There's a process. The process will process its process, and you'll either try to control that process, which means you'll be ground up in the gears of the process, or you'll become part of the process, and then you'll work effortlessly with everything else. Interesting. I had a really good friend, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go down and live with me for a couple of weeks in the Amazon?" Because that's where he lived. And I was like, Amazon, eh? My understanding is everything in the Amazon wants to eat you. He's like, nothing in the Amazon wants to eat you. It'll get rid of your ass if the Amazon thinks that you're something other than. But if you just fall in line with the Amazon and Amazon with the Amazon, then. And so we were down and we were going along, and there were sightings of different tracks and scat and things that belonged to jaguars and all, and there were all sorts of plants and fungus that if you sit on it long enough, it'll start to eat you and all these things. But here's the thing. You wouldn't sit there long enough for that to happen because something else is going to move. So if you just keep moving in the flow, if you just keep moving the tempo of the thing, sleep for this amount of time, move for this amount of time, shut up this time, and you just follow. It's like an orchestra, right? Music isn't the notes; it's the space between the notes, or else it's a cacophony, right?
No, I could hug you.
Or because there's no
Right.
right. So knowing where to put the silence, where to put the stop, where to put the ebb and flow and ebb and flow. Dun, 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 dun. Knowing how to find that rhythm and stay on time. And if you do that, there'll be harmony, there'll be coherence.
And
But
once again,
you're here.
it's getting out of your own way, right?
Sure.
Just being part of the environment, and the environment will give you everything, and it will give you all the answers, and it will help you turn at the right time. It will do absolutely everything. Just don't think about what you're going to say, just say it.
One of my favorite memories is when I was in Vienna, and I met a guy who would, by every outside, look like an extremely mentally handicapped autistic person, very mentally handicapped. He would sit and he would just get some drool sometimes, and so at one point, the person who was taking care of him says to me, it's time for him to have some play. And I was like, well, play is important. It's a fundamental need. I put him on a piano. He went from being this, and he just started playing, and it was beyond, and there was things that were like melancholy, and there are things that are wistful, the things that brought out nostalgia. Then there were raucous, and there were voltas, and at the end, when he got tired, he just and then he went back into the state. And I asked the person with them, like, are you shitting me? Like, how did you get him to learn that? And he's like, nobody knows how, because nobody taught him. He just went down the keys one time, and after that, he never was in his own way. It's just a pure expression of community. That's his communication. And once he's been seen, heard, and understood, because everybody's enwrapped by what he's playing, he's ready to be quiet again, and just right. So he's not aware that he's playing, no more than when you're having an intimate conversation with somebody. You're not aware that you're having a conversation. You're conversing. There's a difference. The mind wants to be, I want to do it and be aware of it too. Look, you can do it or you can be aware of it. They're two different fucking things.
Yeah.
You try to be aware of it while you're doing it, you're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
If you just do it and get out of your own head about it.
It's called self-conscious, isn't it?
Well, it's self-conscious because you're trying to curate what I want you to think of the self.
Yes.
None of your fucking business. Stop meddling. Stop meddling. You're fucking up intuition. Because worry you want, I want to have my experience, but I want you to curate your experience because I want you to feel like, stop being the bossy little kid on the playground. Nobody wants that kid around. Nobody cares. Leave it alone. Let people have their experience, because the experience they need is not the experience you need, and you don't know what they need.
It sounds like, when you want to engage in really amazing oral, right? The more you get out of your own way, the more you can feel the person on the other side, the more you can adjust, the more fun the experience is for the both of you.
Fair point. Fair point.
Well, listen, listen, you bring the high, I'll bring the low, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle, right?
I mean, fair point. No dispute here. No dispute whatsoever. But I mean, the thing with intuition is intuition is a state. Right. It depends on your focus, how you use your body, and how you use your language. And there's parts of your brain, the Broca's speech pattern, the Wernicke's speech pattern, these places have to do with how you speak and then how coherent you are when you speak. If you have a Broca's aphasia, which means you can't speak, Broca's, you just can't talk. If you have Wernicke's aphasia, you can talk, but it's not coherent. You are hearing and thinking what normal things, but when it comes out, I might think the cat ran across the street and hid in the bush. But what I'm going to say is blue crayon jello, tree, big, nice, fat cat. And I think I just said the right thing. And all of you are outside going, what the fuck? It's because the part of you that speaks, the part of you that knows what you're saying and is capable of speaking are two different parts of the brain. But there's another part altogether in the brain that's having the conversation. It's why when people speak, they mess up sometimes, because part of your brain will move faster or slower than your mouth sometimes. And so,
you know, one thing that I also find is that there are certain people that I can feel very eloquent with, and it's because I have just a natural resonance with them. And that's how I actually know I'm sort of compatible with certain people, because when I start to talk to them, it's just like such an easy flow, and words like superfluous or something, you know, it just will come into my mind that will be like a difficult word. And then other people that I don't have a resonance with, I just blank out, and I'll be talking to them and I can't think of somebody's name, or I can't. And it's just, I see that it's just because the resonance between us, there's nothing wrong with them or with me. It's just the same, the frequency that we're on is just different. And it's so fun to talk to people who I have such easy resonance with, because I always feel very brilliant when I speak to them because my words just come so easily.
yep. So, but on either side of the midbrain are two lobes that go back. They're called the hippocampus. Hippocampus also with verbal fluency and also memory. Like, if you keep your keys in the same place, you'll know where those keys are because of your hippocampus. You'll just automatically go there. You won't even think about it. Same with words. But if the visual, verbal, nonverbal cues are not in sync, like for example, here's a great example that happened in Albania. This is no in Albania. This is yes in Albania. So I'm sitting there with some guys that I know that are from the Peace Corps, and they were doing their things, but they had been there a long time. And so they would always do this. I would be having a conversation with them in English and all, and they'd just be like this. And I'm like, what?
People
why?
who are listening, he was moving his head. I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, right and left. And then I'm like, is there something wrong? They're like, oh yeah, this is yes, and this is no. It's the opposite. And I was like, now I knew that consciously, but when you're in the flow of a conversation, that part of your brain that knows the executive prefrontal cortex and the part of you that actually is in that flow ain't the same parts. They don't work like that. And so I was like, could you just keep your fucking head still? If anything, just keep your head still. Like, put it in the iron neck and leave it still. But so those things, they interrupt your flow because the feedback. If I'm, like you were talking about with resonance, if I'm saying something and the feedback tells me that you're receiving it, because it's not about whether you like it or whether you agree with me. It's, are you receiving it in the way I intended to give it? Because that's what we care about. If you want to know the secret to a great lasting marriage, people ask me this all the time, like when we're at relationship workshops and I'm teaching, and they'll be like, how do we have a great, loving, passionate relationship? And it's like, your partner needs to feel seen, heard, and understood. If they're seen, heard, and understood, you have the longest marriage or relationship ever. Even if you can't be married for whatever incompatibilities that come up, you'll still be best of friends, and you'll have a probably even deeper relationship outside of marriage if you're seen, heard, and understood. Because seen, heard, and understood equates to our brain's blueprint as I'm accepted.
Right. Yeah.
That's it. That's all it requires. So when you're having a conversation and a person's verbal and nonverbal, and I'm not just talking about those things which are right in front of you, they're also unaware but conscious things that their people are doing with body posture, with tension in the body that they're holding, or the relaxation, how they're pointing, like all of these things will tell you whether that person is receiving it. But like you were saying with these scientists, which in a lot of ways, most scientists today are just the new priesthood of
They have their own dogma, really. It's like, it's like, it's like you can't, you would be kicked out if you did not just sort of agree with this materialistic point of view.
Right, because their God is just not anthropomorphic.
Right.
But he still has invisible powers. He's still not discernible by the plebs and the humans are wired. Somebody asked Richard Dawkins, who's one of the four horsemen of the four non-horsemen of the apocalypse, they call it. And he's, there's no free will. He's an evolutionary biologist. There's no God. That's all stupid. He's dying on that damn hill. He's ready to die on that hill, right?
He's one of the people that Sheldrake was supposed to have a show with, and because Sheldrake brought his proof, Dawkins didn't want to see it at all. He's like, stop the show. We're not showing. They didn't show any of it and it was all about debunking anything that had to do with, supernatural or ultra natural.
Right. Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens, they all do this. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're brilliant men in their own rights, but they're still men. So which means they've still got the asshole shit. It's just the way it is. Now, Brett Weinstein, who is another brilliant evolutionary biologist, amazing. I could listen to the guy talk because I have very little in common with the way he sees the world, but we have absolute alignment of the conclusions. We just see the world in a very different way, which means that there's no antagonism, even though we approach it from very different ways, right? I don't sit there and go, oh, he's wrong, because he doesn't see it the way I see it. He asked Dawkins at a particular event, I believe in Australia, he said, Dawkins wrote a book in 1972 where he talks about extended phenotypes. For those who don't know what that is, a phenotype, birds have feathers. That's a phenotype of a bird, right? Birds lay eggs. That's a phenotype of a bird. But birds also make nests. Now, that's not part of their physiology, but somehow reason they, as a species, we don't make nests, but they make nests. So the concept is it's an extended phenotype because the genes express in a way to have birds that have wings with hollow bones that they can then fly and all those things. But those nests are endemically specific to the bird, but it's still a nest. And so therefore the genes now create something outside of itself because it protects its young, it protects it from the elements, it helps it hide, all of these things. So it's an extended phenotype. And it was brilliant when it came out. I think 72 is when that came out. So then here comes Weinstein, and Weinstein agrees almost carte blanche with Dawkins on things. But the thing about Weinstein is he knows something that Dawkins is forgetting, that he doesn't know. If you know you don't know, there's always a doubt of, okay, but I'm missing something. And then there's room for growth. But if you know, and it's in fucking stone, and there's no way you can be told, then you're an asshole because you got to die on that hill. And if anybody comes with anything contrary, nope. And you look like an asshole in front of just basic people because you're like, if you're so right, why wouldn't you look at it?
Exactly.
But and even if he has legitimate reasons, you still would delegitimize yourself because the people are outside going, well, then, but if you're so fucking sure, you shouldn't be having a problem with this. And he acts like he's so sure. Now, I'm not disparaging his work, but if you've written an entire body of work, and he's an older gentleman now, you have no time to go back to your earlier work from the 50s, 60s, and 70s and go, I was fucking wrong. There's no time for that because you're worried about legacy, right? That's his problem. Well,
I love the legacy.
That's what it comes down to. You want to be remembered. You want to curate how people remember you. No one's going to remember you, fuckface. I'm so sorry. What was the guy who did most of the legwork and the administrative work for Genghis? Because that guy's an unsung fucking hero. We know Genghis. We don't know that guy's name. No one gives a shit. You're not that important. Just decompose already. But Weinstein asked him, so could then religion, right? Because they're anti-religion, anti-God, whatever. They're not atheists. They're anti-theists.
Exactly.
Right. So there's a distinction there. And so Weinstein was like, but would you be willing to say then that religion is an extended phenotype for humans?
Interesting.
Now, it is not saying that it is or it isn't. It's worth discussing if you're the fucking guy who's made this term, because Dawkins also made the term meme.
Right.
And so it's worth discussing. No. And he wouldn't even have a conversation with his own colleague who almost carte blanche locksteps with him, which tells you he cut off, his legacy is going to be, he's an asshole. He was self-effete. He's gotten so used to tenure and tell everybody else they're fucking stupid that he's going to make himself fucking stupid.
But what you're also saying is that he isn't in touch with his intuition.
Well, there's no intuition because I know. You see, intuition says, I don't know how I knew. But for him, fuck that. Ye is supreme, and ergo, I know. And if you say something that I may not know, or maybe outside, it's an attack on my sovereignty. Now, only an ego, via the ye, only ego needs to be offended or defended. That's it.
So to try to summarize the beautiful, brilliant thing you just discussed, basically, once you say to yourself, I got it, you're fucked.
Yep. Because who's the I and what do you got? And when the context for that, what you got is over with, now what do you got?
Love it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why people say to me all the time, man, you just understand doubt. I don't understand shit. I'm an idiot. I'll tell you I'm an idiot. If you give me a context, I'll give you an answer. But I know outside of that context, I'm wrong. So therefore, I have no reason to be right.
Yeah.
Therefore, I don't care about. But most people's equation and their blueprint of life is you have to be right to be happy. But you can be happy or you can be right. You can't be both. People right all the time are miserable. People are happy, don't care.
One of the things I always tell anybody coming to study with me or anything else is, please don't take my word for it.
No.
Right? Go check it out. Go see if it works. And if it doesn't, well, I fucked up. I'm sorry.
Or you were right for you, but that's not right for them because their path is their path. I had a physics student in my second in-person class about 7 years ago. And he said to me, while we were talking about, you have to be able to observe your world because your world is solely yours. You're born solely into that world. You'll die into that world solely. You can enjoy the ride with many people, but it's still your life. And so nobody can tell your path. And so as a physicist, of course, and a really brilliant mathematician, he said, so we're supposed to take your word for it. I'm like, do not take my word for it. I've told you things that have happened to me. I'm the asshole that is going to get you really hurt if you listen to me. Your path isn't my path and mine isn't yours.
Right.
I can tell you tendencies of the way, but you'll have to apply them to your path. And that's the beauty of Taoism, but it's also why we have no centralized Taoist authority or dogma.
Yeah.
Because you can't have dogma, because I have a very good friend and he is a celibate, he's a vegetarian, and he's a flute player. But he refuses to let you record him play flute. He refuses to play flute during the daylight hours. He only plays it from about 10 p.m. to about 5 a.m. That's it. And then the rest of the day, he sleeps, he does his exercises and practice and cultivations and his liturgy. That's it. That's all he does. And so one day I was talking with him and I said, you know, when I go to sleep at night and I'm listening to your flute, because he likes to play it at 10 and I'm going to bed about that time. And I'm just like, I have so many damn dreams because you're like the soundtrack to my freaking dreams. And he's like, I know. And I just want you to have the best sleep, but the most enjoyable sleep too. I'm like, that's mighty Christian of you. But then he told me one night, he's like, listen, we got a visitor coming and the music's going to be a little bit different. So if you want to go stay like one of the hotels instead of staying in the dorms, you can do that. And I was like, well, I mean, I think it should be fine. He's like, well, this is a sexual cultivation practitioner. And so the music will be, you know, congruent with that. And I was like, when you're celibate, you live this way. And he's like, I know, but my heart is no different than their heart. They're just as pure as I am because they're just as devoted to their practices as I am. He doesn't care that they're a sexual practitioner and he's a celibate. Both in their devotions are identical. It's just what their devotion, the orientation of their devotion is from their side facing the nothing, right? Don't meddle. Even if something that seems so contradictory to your path, don't meddle. It's not your path. If you don't like it, Keep your fucking eyes on your own path. Stop looking at other people's lanes.
So it's interesting because for several decades now, I've been practicing and teaching a form of meditation, visualization exercises. And as part of that, in the end of that, each one of the students supposed to tell what happened in that particular journey, right? And for all the years I've been doing this, I've never ever heard the same story twice. For all the people I've seen, I've never ever heard it repeat. And I'm constantly surprised by the new things I hear, which I thought, I've heard all. No, there's new things all the time. And that just goes to show you just how incredibly individual our paths are. There is no second one of you, even when you have twins, they're different.
Yep. One time, many years ago, probably a decade now, I was teaching students of visualization, Nagong, and I'll never forget, everybody was there talking about, oh, I saw this, and I felt this was so close, and these things happen. And I was just listening to them. I don't really comment on them. I don't really have any buy-in either. I mean, their experience is your experience, great. I'm happy you had it. But one student comes over to me, and she was pretty meek about it. She's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I mean, it felt okay, but I didn't see or hear anything. I'm like, so why did you do something wrong? All these other people are seeing and hearing things. I'm like, that's what they do, is what you do. She's like, but shouldn't I have seen or heard something? I'm like, I've never seen or heard shit in any cultivation I've ever done, and I've done them forever. She goes, you don't see or hear? No, I don't have any fucking experience like that ever. Never have, ever. She's like, then why do you keep doing it? Because it works. I just know. I don't know why I know. Don't care why I know. I don't ask why I know. And so that's enough for me. Everybody will have the experience they have. I'm like, were you in your head? Were you using negative self-talk? Were you doing the things? No, I just was able to just sit for the first time in a long time. Sold. Good enough for me, man. How did that feel? It's like, it's a really weird feeling. Of course it's a weird feeling because it's something you don't normally feel. Sit with that. Make it comfortable. See what happens. After that, she became a mom and a self-possessed woman that she had never been. And I'm like, didn't get the light show, but apparently got the life out of it. So, I mean, you didn't
Right.
do that, You're going to have the experience in life you're going to have. And if somebody doesn't have yours, it doesn't mean that nobody loves you and you're not going to get birthday cake. You'll get birthday cake. I promise, monkey. You'll get birthday cake. You'll get your birthday cake. But just because somebody has their experience, great. That's their experience.
Exactly right.
We need to wrap up here. I would like actually for each of you to maybe give one thing that somebody could do to just increase their ability to be intuitive or to be, more fully alive. Just one tool or just an idea of something that they could do today, right now.
I'll give two versions of the same thing because some people are visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more sensual. Go on a fast, but not food. Shut up for 12 straight hours. Say nothing. Lao, can I email or stop? Shut the fuck up. Just talk. You need to write an email because work. Fine. What if my kid gets hurt? Fine, and call fucking 911. I swear to God. Just shut up. 12 straight hours the first time. Try 24 next time. 12 straight hours. Shut up. Now, for those of you like, well, I don't really talk much at all. I'm not going to let your ass off the hook either. Try to go what's called a thought fast. A thought fast is if you catch yourself at any time within 7 days. You want to go 3 days because it's just so much. Do 7, fine. Do 3 days. But if you can go 3 days, every time you think a negative thought, just catch yourself. If you catch yourself, no big deal. But if you find yourself, indulging a negative thought about yourself, another whatever, start back over the 3 days. You can go 3 straight days. You do that, I guarantee you, your intuition will go through the roof. 12 straight hours, no talking, or 3 days thought fast. Those two versions will your intuition will go off the roof. You'll know things you don't know why you know.
When you say it that way, it comes to my mind that the negative thought is the ye, that is the know-it-all mind.
This cursed monkey.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. That's really a good one. Arthur.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow, Lau. That said, for me, it's a little bit different, actually. For me, it materializes in bring your consciousness down and flex your core a little bit. In other words, as you go through the day, feel your core, feel it, flex it, feel it how it is, the physical manifestation of it. And when you're ready, start feeling how your toes land on the floor. Start feeling the texture of the rug that you're walking on. And just do that. Just bring your consciousness down to the lower part of your body and see what happens to your intuition.
I love that. That's great. I would say that I've been on a media fast for a little over 6 months now, and just not watching things has really increased my intuition quite a bit.
Watching things hypnotizes you, so you can't hear your intuition, even though it's screaming at you, because you're numbing it because something's intuiting it for you. We'll give you the news, and we'll tell you what to think of it.
Exactly. Exactly. This has been great, you guys, as always. I adore you both. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Always
Thanks
learn
for
so much.
joining us.